Jesus tells us a story. Jesus tells us a story in Luke chapter 12. He tells us a parable in Luke 12. He says this, the ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what shall I do? I have no place to store my crops. Then he said, this is what I'll do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I will store my surplus grain. So we've been talking about the idea that Sabbath reminds us that it's not all about us, that there are those around us, there are those in the community that can benefit from us, that Sabbath is our call to do good. So here Jesus is telling us this story, and in it you can see what it means to have a Sabbath attitude, because you see this man not having it. In other words, he has a surplus. He has more than he can eat for himself. He has been blessed. This doesn't just happen because not everyone has this surplus grain. He has a surplus, so much so he does not have room enough to receive the blessing of God. And his reaction, what shall I do? His reaction, what shall I do, does not provoke in him, what about, let me check if others don't have. He doesn't think of, what can I do to help those around me? He doesn't say, you know what, I have so much grain, Michael, let me reach out to my community and find out if there are others without grain. He does not seek to do good to others. He does not seek to revolutionize his community. He has been blessed, but he wants the blessing to stop with him. And throughout this series, we've been learning that if we are to be a Sabbath people, we ought to be people that deliver and rescue others, to serve those around us. For we are reminded in Deuteronomy chapter 5 that we ought to keep the Sabbath because God is the one that delivered us out of Israel. Therefore, the reason why we Sabbath is because God is a deliverer. And therefore, we ought to be as well. So this man thinks to himself, here's what I'm going to do. I will tear down my barns and build bigger ones. And there I'll store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy. Hello? This is what I call the boy dream, the girl dream. This is what we dream of, right, Hannah? One day, I won't have to go into that school anymore. One day, no more meetings with the teachers, no more meetings with their parents, no more fundraising, no more marketing meetings. I will be sitting down and relaxing, resting. And when everyone else is in trouble, I will just be going, well, my prayers are with you. Hannah's shaking her head. That's not her dream. I'll be honest. That's my dream. One day I'll get an email and I'll be able, well, I don't have to respond to that. It's someone else's problem now. One day someone will complain about something and I'll go, duly noted. That's the boy dream. The boy dream is that one day we won't have to work anymore. You see, the difficulty with us resting is because we believe it's because we value our work. The truth is, it's because we don't value it. Because for us, the only time we truly rest is when we vacate. We call it vacation. Is when we escape from our work. And we call it leisure time. The problem with us is that we don't have an appropriate rhythm of rest and work. Our work is not meant for just us. Our work is meant for the community, for the world around us. We contribute to work as part of God's creation. Before sin entered the world, Adam had work. Name the animals. He had creativity. He had purpose. This is a marriage conversation, so we'll leave it for our marriage seminar next year in February. But our marriage series, I should say. But it's interesting that before Adam got Eve, he had work. He had purpose. And Eve is brought into that purpose. But most men look for women as their purpose. And women are trying to find men with purpose. Whole nother series. I won't move into it. But work was part of God's creation. It was a blessing. It was good. It was valuable. Work had purpose, but then work became cursed by the sweat of your brow. And from that moment, we've been trying to vacate from work. Even those of us who love our work, we can't wait to vacate. I love my job. But there are times I need to escape. I need a rescue. And part of the reason why, here's the reality, is because we believe that our work is what takes care of us. We have put our dependence on our work to feed our families, to take care of those around us. Everything is dependent on us, and we think if I stop working, what will happen in the world? The difficulty with Sabbath is because we go, well, if I don't do it, who will? We put all the emphasis on us, and the truth of the matter is, I want to give you a breaking news. You don't take care of you. God takes care of you. Who's the one who gave you the work? God takes care of you. That's why Jesus, in his story after this parable, Jesus then says, so do not worry about your life, what you will eat, what you will drink. Because look. Your heavenly Father knows that you need these things. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow, they do not reap, but they get fed. Are you not more valuable than they? Sabbath is an attitude that God is a rewarder of those who seek him. That God will take care of me. Sabbathing is the attitude that I can depend on God. And if I can depend on God, then I can take a break. If I can't depend on God, then everything depends on me. Then I really can't take a break. I walk into Sabbath thinking about what I forgot to do, and I walk out of Sabbath, can't wait to getting back to it. I don't truly learn to rest. The story continues. Jesus tells a story where he builds up the barn and he goes, you know what? One day I'll retire. I will not have to do this anymore. It's going to be great. It's going to sound awesome. I can't wait. You know what's interesting is when you talk to people who have retired and they're wanting to get back into work. They're going, what am I doing all day? Look, I got a retired group right here smiling like, yes, Pastor, you're talking to me. Jeremiah, I understand your pain. It's interesting because this man thinks, oh, once I get here, I will be okay. I will be fine. I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid up for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, you what? You what? Come on, say it louder. Fool, speak to yourself. This is what you say to yourself when you have these dreams, these boy dreams. This is what you should say. You fool. There you go. You fool. It is foolish of you to think this way. This very night, your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. Wow. He spent his life acquiring material things. He spent his time on things rather than on God. He accumulated wealth, but he has no control over his time. This is the understanding that time is more valuable than money. The problem with time is you don't know how much of it you have. You don't know when you spent it. and you cannot get it back. This is why the best way to move in our world is to honor the time that has been given to us. To honor Sabbath is to learn to give up time, to invest it well in order to get it replenished. Sabbath is the time where we are called to be with God and be with people. To be rich towards God is to spend my time in God, with God, for God. To be rich towards God is to have invested the time that I've been given with God's people, for God's purpose, in God's service. Sabbathing is the recognition that I can depend on the God who calls me to rest. That he is calling me to rest because he's already taking control of what bothers me, worries me. The reality for each and every one of us is that as we go into Sabbath from Sabbath, most of us don't have an expectation from God. We don't walk into Sabbath with expectation. We go into our work with expectation, but we go into rest without any. When you work, you expect I don't know what you guys, is it called a paycheck here? Just want to make sure I'm using the same words. You expect a paycheck. You expect a reward. You work hard, and so you get what you're looking for. But what is the expectation from rest? Why is it that when we walk into rest, we don't have an expectation? Why is it that when we walk into Sabbath, there's no expectation of God's deliverance, of God's restoration, God's release? We don't walk into Sabbath expecting. And I'm here to tell you, if you will learn to Sabbath from Sunday to Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday to Thursday to Friday, that is to learn to depend on the living God on Sunday, on Monday, on Tuesday, on Wednesday, on Thursday, and Friday. Therefore, I will be able to let go of all my work on Sabbath because the God who took care of me on Sunday can take care of my entire Saturday. If I will learn to Sabbath, I will learn to depend and rely on the God who is more than able to take care of me. Listen to the commandment. Remember to keep the Sabbath day. Why? Because he created all the heavens and all the earth, including you. Meaning he says, come into rest because I made you. Okay, let me try this side. The reason why he calls you to rest is because he is the one who can restore you. He made you in the first place. He calls you into rest because he can take care of you. He doesn't say, come take a break and don't worry about it. It'll take care of itself. He says, no, come into rest because remember, I delivered you from Egypt. I've done this before. I can do it again. See, it's one thing if my coworker says, why don't you take a break? Buddy, you're not paying me. Take a break, you take a break. But when my boss says, you've been working so hard, why don't you take a break? I go, okay. Why? Because the paycheck's coming from him. Do you see that? Therefore, God is calling me to rest because my sustenance, my living, my life comes from him. If he calls you to rest, it's because he's able to take care of you. He does not call you to rest and worry. He calls you to rest and depend. Sabbathing is learning to depend on God. Sabbathing is the attitude of Mary. Martha is busy working hard in the kitchen, taking care of everything, and she gets so strong. She's so confused by why Jesus is letting her sister not do work. That lazy girl. She's never at work. I'm always the one struggling on my own. Jesus, can't you tell her to get in that kitchen and start working? Listen to the words of Jesus. Martha, 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 Martha. The Lord answered, you are what? Worried. Ooh. If Martha were here today, she'd say, Jesus, I'm not worried. I'm not worried. I'm just concerned that she's not doing anything. I'm not worried. You are worried and upset about many things. I don't have the time to really unravel this. But you see, in Martha's eyes, she's only concerned about her sister, watch this, not coming to help her. But Jesus recognizes that her concern for her sister comes from layers of concern for other things. Come on, married folks, you can help me here. You're not upset about the dish that was left on the counter. Come on. Let's be serious. Let's be real. Let's be honest. It's not that he forgot to make the tea. It's all the other things he hasn't done. You walked into the restroom. The light was left on again. The towel's on the floor. How many times have you told him to put the clothes on the hamper? How many? I'm telling on myself. Let me stop. Let me stop preaching to me. Let me stop preaching to me. See, it just recognizes that our worries are often layered with other concerns. In other words, our anxieties are not just about one thing. Often it is an attitude, an overall attitude of self-dependence rather than dependence. It is an attitude that if I don't do it, no one else will. It all depends on me. It's all about me. I have to worry about this. It's this exasperation, this exhaustion of making sure you take care of you. And the call to Sabbath is not just on that one day. It's throughout the week to know that the God who made you can and will take care of you. This is what faith is. You see, here's the reality. I cannot keep Sabbath until I have faith. Sabbath is an act of faith. Martha, Martha, the Lord answered, you are worried about and upset about many things, but few things are needed, or indeed only one. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. What is better is to rely, depend, and wait on me. And that won't be taken. You might look at it as if it's laziness, but I know it to be faithfulness. The true dependence is relying on God to deliver rather than me deliver. This week, I struggled this week because I lost, I guess something not too important, but a little bit important. Lost my passport. In 3 weeks, I'm headed to the States to and I just started looking at, okay, so now I have to go get my passport and my ticket vouchers that would give me some free flights. Thank you, Jesus, hallelujah. We're also lost. And once you lose them, there's no replacing them. And so I started praying. I started looking for it, but I was praying about it. Every night we started praying. So my wife and I got together and we were praying. And I'd lost my laptop a couple weeks ago. Yes. Jose, you're worried and upset about many things. So I lost my laptop. My mom used to say as a child that if my head wasn't connected to my body, I would forget it somewhere. And it's truth. So I lost these things. I kept worrying and looking for it. I mean, just like the story of Jesus, we turned everything over. I moved my furniture, moved my couches, moved everything. Tried to look for it. The laptop, which was the least of my concern, showed up first. Right underneath the sofa, there goes the laptop that I've been missing for 3 weeks. And I told Tom over and over again, I left it in the church office. I was praying for the person to bring it back. It happened to be at my house. It's okay. But the true lesson in this was when after we looked everywhere, I said, God, this is up to you now. I can't, I've looked everywhere. I've prayed, I've looked, I've prayed, I've looked. And as Sabbath was coming on, we stopped everything. We stopped looking. I said, all right, let me go out into my car. And I said, well, let me just look to see if it's up there. I opened the mirror, and it's not there in my car. And I go, well, that was it. And then right there, just as I sat and rested and had given up, something said, why don't you look in the same place in Tiffany's car? Now, we had turned Tiffany's car upside down. We look, I go in, I open the flap, and there is my passport and the vouchers. And I realized something. How much time would we save if we just waited on God? I realized the reason why Jesus could come and in 33 years transform the world is because everything he did was in dependence on God. He didn't move without asking God. He didn't heal just anyone. He healed the one he was administered to, appointed to. Everything he did was based on God's calculation and agenda. He did exactly what was necessary, nothing more, nothing less. And I realized that I waste a lot of time trying to fend for myself instead of just waiting on God. I didn't find the passport in all my worry and hurry and searching. I found the passport when I just sat down and said, God, it's up to you. When I had truly surrendered. I think that's what Sabbath is all about. I think that's why when we go into Sabbath, it calls us to believe in the person that we can absolutely depend on. In Luke chapter 13, we are told of another woman who encounters Jesus on the Sabbath. This woman is nameless. She is told to be someone who's been sick for 18 years. She's at the synagogue. She goes to the place of community on Sabbath day. She goes maybe not expecting much, probably sits in the same seat that she's always sat in, probably just waiting for the day to go by, to get her teaching, to get her word for the day, and then go home. I don't know what she was expecting that day, but I have a feeling that perhaps she kept going to that same synagogue and kept going to that same place, hoping that one day, on this holy day, this day that is set apart from any other days, hoping that maybe one of these days she would actually get healing. So she kept going, kept coming every Sabbath day. It says on this Sabbath day, though, Luke 13, verse 10, on a Sabbath, Jesus was teaching. That day, the guest preacher happened to be the creator of the world. Jesus was teaching in one of the synagogues, and a woman was there who had been crippled by a spirit for 18 years. What's interesting is that Luke is a physician. He's a doctor. Luke could have given us the biological issue, the actual illness. Luke could have given us the exact reason for why she was this way. But Luke helps us realize that what happens in our physical realities have spiritual implications. And Luke doesn't just say her physical condition. He says that her physical condition is connected to a spiritual mandate. That there's been a spirit who's been crippling her. In other words, the things that you and I encounter are not just struggles against flesh and blood, but there are spiritual struggles that they deal with. That what you and I encounter is not just our problem, it's not just our personality, it's not just that you have an anger issue. Could there be a spirit of anger? It's not just that you're anxious. Could there be a spirit of anxiety? It's not just that you're sick. It's not just that bad things keep happening to you. It's not just that you're accident prone. Could there be spiritual implications for the things that happen to us? And could there be release and deliverance from that through a God who made us and wants more for us in our lives? Could Sabbath be the day that God calls us to remember that he delivered you out of Egypt? He's taken you out of your issues before. He's done this for you before. Could Sabbath be the reminder that on this day, you ought to expect more? That this day is not like any other. That I can't just walk into it and walk out of it. That I ought to ask God, when will you free me? When will you deliver me? When will this habit be gone? When will this addiction be gone? When will this issue be erased? When will I have victory over this? On Sabbath, I ought to expect from the God who made me. That it's not just another day. That he made it holy. That he made it for restoration. That he made it for deliverance. That I ought to expect something from God. Not just a good teaching. Not just good music. Not just time with my friends. That I ought to expect God to enter into my reality. Or else how am I better than the next guy? He who comes to God, Hebrews 11 verse 6 says, must believe that he is God and that he is a rewarder of those who seek him. I must believe that if I'm going to the Lord of the Sabbath, he can give me true rest. On that day, she walked into the synagogue. She sat down. She took her seat. And she waited. She waited on that day. And as she waited, Jesus sees her and says to her, woman, come forward. What I love about this is that when God restores, he restores all of you, not just parts of you. He says, woman, come forth. He brings her from the back of the room to the front of the room. Come and stand right here. Someone who most people would not have allowed even in the place. He brings her to the front of the place. David says it well. David says, you took me from the dunghill and sat me with princes. That's the kind of God we serve. He restores fully and completely. Look. I don't care what you're going through. If you will humble yourself in the sight of the Lord, he will lift you up. See, we fight for ourselves too much. Let them talk about you. Let them accuse you. Let them say bad things. God will speak for you one day. It might not be today, but it'll happen. God shall have and will have the last word. So why fight for yourself? See, she sat down, and then Jesus tells her, come on, get up. Yeah, me and Shaka, we know that. Imagine coming down the aisle, back broken. People barely probably saw her face. I'm pretty sure most people didn't even recognize she was there. She gets to the front, and Jesus says to her, woman, woman, you are set free from your infirmity. Then he put his hands on her, and immediately she straightened up and praised God. Now, I don't know about you, because maybe she went to a different type of church, but I don't know if she, when she straightened up, if she just said, thank you. I love Jesus, and this is how I express my love to the Lord. Thank you for healing me for 18 years. I'm pretty sure that when she got up, after 18 years of not being able to straighten up, that when she got up, she cried something like Jose would cry. Hallelujah! Praise God! Thank you, Jesus. I'm sure when she praised God, it was an exclamation of gratitude that came from deep within her because she recognized, had it not been for the Lord who was on my side. That praise came from deep within. She declared God so much so that the synagogue ruler had to come and step in and quiet her down, because that's what church folks do. Synagogue ruler came in, hey, all this chaos. Hey, that guy over here preaching on that stage, oh, you need to limit his time up there. Listen. Hey, you got 6 days. You have 6 days to be healed. Come be healed on those days, but the seventh day is a Sabbath. You can't be healed on that day. Now, this man is quoting from Deuteronomy to tell him that you got 6 days to do work. So Jesus quotes from Deuteronomy 2, and Jesus says to her, wait a minute. Doesn't the passage you talk about also say that your animals should rest and your animals shouldn't work? But you bring your animals to get water. So if you can't let your animals be tied up for an hour, shouldn't you release this woman who's been bound for 18 years? If they should get water and get rest, shouldn't this woman, wait, not just any woman, this woman that most people would consider evil? Luke speaks into the culture of the day. He's a physician, but he speaks into the culture of the day. He's trying to set something up. When Luke tells you there's an evil spirit, it's because that's how most people would have seen her. That she is condemned by God, that she is not of God, that she's sinned. And Luke speaks into that saying, yeah, there's an evil implication, but she herself, Jesus, daughter of Abraham. This daughter of Abraham, in other words, she might be sick, she's still my child. Something might have gone wrong, but it doesn't change her position. It doesn't change her identity. Listen. Your behavior is not your identity. You are still a child of God. This daughter of Abraham, shouldn't she be delivered? If the animal should be rescued, shouldn't she? And if you don't expect your animals to stay bound forever, shouldn't this woman on the Sabbath day be delivered too? You are loosed from your infirmity on the Sabbath day. Watch. The woman did not ask to be delivered. She did not plead for deliverance. She did not seek deliverance. It doesn't say, woman, your faith has saved you. The only thing that was different that day, it was a Sabbath day. John 5, he heals a man born blind. It was a Sabbath day. Over and over again, whenever you see Jesus healing and resting and rescuing people without their faith doing it, it's often a Sabbath day. Just go check the Gospels. Jesus would often deliver and heal and rescue and restore people without them asking, pleading, or begging for it, simply because they're in the right place at the right time on the Sabbath day. I invite you to expect more from God, to depend on God, to let go of trying to take care of yourself, and to learn to trust in God, especially on Sabbath day.